Welcome to Daniel's Group Truth Bookcast. Um, we're going to be talking about chapter 3, and my friends Kay and Cherie and Alice are going to do most of the talking tonight because I'm not doing a very good job of it. So, um, I just want to say hello to everybody. This is Rhonda.
I'm Kay.
I'm Cherie.
And I'm Alice.
Hello. They all think I'm so corny. We'll figure out something more, more entertaining or appropriate for the future. Um, so it's okay to be kind of, I don't know, giddy or goofy or fun, I think. Keeps us young, right? Um, so anyway, like I said, tonight we're going to talk about chapter 3, and this is going to be the case that involves Malcolm Rent Johnson, and it's a pretty it's another dirty case, but it's a good case. It's interesting, and ultimately it's a pretty sad case. So we're going to get started with we're going to go ahead and Kay definitely has some thoughts from Daniel, but Kay or Cherie or how about Alice? Alice, why don't you talk to us to start with a little bit about chapter 3?
Um, Chapter 3 is a funny one. Because you don't know how to feel about it. It's about Malcolm Red Johnston, who is he is he has been done for rape before. But he gets railroaded in a sense for rape and it's how they go about it is weird. But one question I've got is they mention a Tony Gregory, and is that I was just wondering if that was any relation.
That's a good question. The other question, who's the other attorney? Or I mean, the other detective is
Bob Macy.
Bill Cook.
Real quick.
Bill Cook, the detective, Kim Davis's partner, Valerie Homan. Cook is her maiden name. So I don't know. That's a good question that we got out of chapter 3.
Yeah.
Daniel, actually, that was Daniel's questions.
I actually did some research about Gregory. I couldn't find a direct relation, but I did see some evidence that there might be relation to either him or to the Gregory who was the captain or whatever in Spring Lake Division. Um, but I did do some research.
Arthur?
Yes. I did do some research several months ago when I very first read this chapter, so I didn't find anything very significant, but I didn't do very much deep diving on it either. But there is so much familial connection between a lot of the people in that department that it's probably very likely, because Brian Taylor is uh, Rocky Gregory's brother-in-law, and Brian Taylor is the son of Elaine Taylor. So, we know there's a lot of family mixing going on in the department. So, yeah, that's something we'll definitely look into because, again, there's, dirty players that go on this state side as well. So, okay.
That crackerjack detective work runs in the family, maybe.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Good,
Oh my
Cherie. Good
God.
for you. She doesn't say very much, but when she does, she just goes right for it. That's awesome. Good job.
Rhonda, it's telling me on the YouTube that we're still waiting for you.
That we're still what?
That it's
We're
saying
waiting for
waiting
you.
for just Rhonda.
Oh my
So
gosh.
So we're only talking to ourselves. That was a good rehearsal, though. Maybe we can get our tagline right this time.
Maybe do something right. Well, let me.
Let's step it up a notch, gals.
Okay. I don't know what that means. All right. I'm gonna.
You should have just canceled with your mic.
Oh, there's
As soon as you're
Darkside. Darkside is in the chat. I see Darkside in the chat.
But you're not live there. Is that what she's saying?
It says well,
There are several people in the chat, but it doesn't show that we're playing yet. It still says waiting. There are several people in there.
Oh no, wait, we are. I can hear.
Can,
I've just logged into my phone and we're live on the phone.
well, that's good.
Hey, this is the good part of the program.
It says we're
Oh
live.
my God.
It says we're live.
God.
It says we're live.
Abba-dooba-da.
Okay, well.
It says we're live.
Now you guys have to turn your YouTubes off so it'll quit echoing. And let's just jump right back in to our entertaining talk.
Yeah, we were doing pretty good, right?
my laptop's taking the piss. That's what it is.
It's taken what?
It's taking the piss.
Taking a piss?
It's weird. I have no audio. The one with the chatters.
Oh, taking a piss? Not taking a piss, okay.
Taking the piss out of me.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. Kat said that, yeah, it's weird. I guess she's going to post a link to wherever we really are. So we're just going to go ahead and keep talking.
You said we're where?
I don't know, but she's going to post a link to wherever we really are. Because I'm getting data feedback and stuff. So there's Shaz. I see Shaz.
I mean, if we're live, we should carry on then.
Yeah, I say we just keep going, and I think Kat's going to help us out, and Shaz was able to find us, so I think we're going to be okay. We're going to get this part, yeah, Starkside says lost in space. Let me just say a really quick hello to the few people we have. We have Darkside in the chat, and Shaz, and we have Catnit, and
T1 was in there as well when I had it open on YouTube on my laptop. T1 was in there as well.
Oh, was he? Oh, well.
Yeah.
we'll just see what happens. Anyway, so we're going to carry on. And yes, so the Malcolm Rent Johnson story was one that I like you, Alice, I found it to be very interesting because of the different dynamics. But yes, I did do some research into finding out if Gregory was related to our friend Rocky. But like I said, I didn't really find out a whole lot, but I didn't really do a lot of digging. So that's another little thing that we can check out too, for sure eventually. So other thoughts about chapter 3, Alice?
I'm just trying to remember what I wrote.
I know it's been a while since you read chapter 3.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We can definitely, pick things up as we go along too. So Cherie, how about you? Do you remember? It's been a while, but you remember chapter 3? And were some of your thoughts? Hello.
And
I'm gonna take her mute button away from her. Can you hear? Are you with us, Cherie? I don't know where she's at. Okay, how about you, Kay?
Well, So, I mean, I thought that it's interesting. This is Gilchrist's first death penalty case. She had been a chemist for a year and a half. So, I mean, it seems like she just started being dirty right off the bat, because the evidence, she did her creative evidence again, where, she testifies that semen is on something that later it's found that semen was not on that, and vice versa. She just makes everything fit. It's just so annoying what they do in this. Um, let's
It's the
see.
dirty tactics that they use as well.
The what?
The dirty tactics.
Oh, yeah.
With the police officers with his brother.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's what Daniel said. Exactly. I mean, even at trial, they had someone try to identify the rapist at Malcolm's trial, and she pointed out Malcolm's brother, who was sitting behind him, who, most likely is the one who did that, and that's how the things ended up in their house. But I don't know, maybe Malcolm was there for the robbery, who knows, because the stuff did end up in the house. But why didn't they investigate Johnson's brother as a possible suspect? And in the book it says, and what led the OCPD detectives to Johnson's apartment in the first place? Was there an informant involved? Was it Rodney Johnson? If so, why didn't the police investigate him as a possible material witness, accomplice, or even a suspect? Um,
I mean, it's the fact as well that Gilchrist, is it according to Davies, who worked in the same place, said that she was one of the lads and she would go drinking with them and everything like that. And I think that with her doing that, it made them think more that as long as they got her as the one who does the testing and that, then they were going to get a conviction.
Yeah. Well, and we know that they were very reliant on Joyce Gilchrist because they knew that they could get her to do whatever they needed for the case. So I'm just going to kind of for those in the chat, this was a 1982 trial of Malcolm Rent Johnson, and this is the case where we actually um, get introduced to Joyce Gilchrist as part of Bob Macy's death penalty team, and as Kay said, this was her first capital case trial, and she'd only been working about a year and a half at this point, but she managed, like we were saying, to go, get this phenomenal evidence from her. But it started with the murder of on October 27th, 1981, of Ura Alma Thompson. She was a 76-year-old lady. She lived alone. Her sister, she had family, and her sister had been unable to reach her, and so they sent the building manager over to the apartment to check on her, and her nephew, I believe it was Frank, went into the apartment and found her dead on the bedroom floor, and she was naked, and except for a pair of pantyhose, which I'm not sure how that fit in, but the autopsy determined that she had been raped and asphyxiated, and there were some things that were missing from her apartment, which indicates a burglary, and some diamond rings, a watch, a mink coat, and her apartment keys. So Malcolm Rent Johnson he was on parole. He was a parolee from Illinois, and as Alice said, he had already been served prison time for rape, armed robbery, and burglary. So really, he does fit they fit the suspect profile in the case based on what they found when they went in.
Can I interrupt you a minute?
Absolutely,
He served 3 years, 8 months for rape, armed robbery, and burglary. Like
yeah,
that gets 3 years
3 years.
or 4 years, basically.
Yeah,
Oh
isn't
my
that
gosh, that
crazy?
just blows my mind.
Yeah,
But
it
anyway,
is.
go
It's insane. It's insane. Oh, I read a lot of these different cases from out of Oklahoma, and I just think, wait a minute, because I'm always comparing them to the amount of time that Daniel's been sentenced to, and it's very unequivalent or not equal, or however I don't think everybody in the chat heard. I have a super bad headache, so I'm going to be even more scatterbrained than I normally am. I actually should probably let Kay and Cherie and Alice do most of the talking, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this mostly over to you guys um, to go ahead and run it down.
Okay. Okay, sure. Okay, so um he had a live-in girlfriend who gave the police permission to search his apartment, and um that's how they found the Alma's belongings there. So because he had been arrested on like a weapons charge. So I don't know, Macy probably just, once they had him and this had happened and he was the next door neighbor or whatever, um, Macy probably just thought, we don't need a black man coming in here from Illinois, you know, making our town dirty. He probably just decided to take care of him because um, he really intended the death penalty from the beginning. So detectives, like we talked about, detectives Bill Cook and Tony Gregory, they were investigating the murder, rape, and um, when they were questioning Malcolm Johnson, they said that they had found um, his semen in the victim, and his response was, "You couldn't have found my semen in her because I didn't come." And so they took that to mean that he was saying that he was guilty, that he, you know, had sex with her but didn't come, which, his attorney argues that, Malcolm, actually, he says Malcolm Rent Johnson was a really dumb guy. Um, oh no, wait, that was the Oklahoma County. No, yeah, it is the Oklahoma County Assistant Public Defender Bob Rabbits. Um, that was his assessment of Malcolm. He said when Cook told Johnson that his semen was found in the victim, Johnson had no idea that um, he had no idea that blood type could be found in the semen sample of a secretor. Rabbits believed that Johnson was saying that he hadn't given a semen sample, so there was no way that they could have matched the sample to the victim. But regardless, they, took that, and Gilcrease, tested the sheets and pillowcases and all kinds of stuff, and they end up charging him with the rape and murder of uh, Alma Thompson, as well as, in addition to those crimes, he was also charged with 4 other rapes 1 attempted rape, robbery with a firearm, 2 counts of first-degree burglary, and illegal possession of a firearm. And there were 2 preliminary hearings. And this is the part where the one was asked to identify him, and they identify his brother. And they still don't investigate that. So, you know, Cook and Gregory, they never investigated another possible suspect, and Daniel and I talked a lot about that um, it was just tunnel vision, and maybe he felt like maybe it was a little bit different than in his case where um, they really thought this guy guilty. I think Daniel's convinced now that they all know he's innocent. So it wasn't something where they were trying to exact justice. What they did to him was different for their own reasons. But with this, it's much like, I don't know, it's like any other prosecutor that goes after someone without without evidence to support statements, and uses the press to build a case against him, and just take him down because because the jury ends up being, it gets emotional, I guess, in cases like this. Go ahead, Cherie.
Sorry about that. I was just
No.
going to say that it's hard work to go after two, look at more than one suspect. If you just work on one, then it's less work. I'm being sarcastic.
Well, yeah, of course, it's less work. I mean, in Daniel's case, it didn't end up being that way. We talked about, that. In Daniel's case, it seems like instead of them working backwards and trying to find who matched the DNA, you would find that in, you would think you would find who it possibly was in a week. They didn't have enough people on board yet to make it a serial rapist case. So they had to, cultivate all these other victims first before they got their DNA girl, because after that, you can't be going out seeking. You don't really have the excuse that they used is they're trying to match it to the DNA. Once you don't have that excuse, you can't really, I guess, in their eyes, go and do what they shouldn't have been doing in the first place. So, yeah, that really struck a nerve with him, but in a different way. So the second preliminary hearing, OCPD Detective Julie Smith testified that she saw these items in the apartment. It's a whole list of items that belonged.
You're muted.
What happened to Kay? So it was a whole list of items that belonged to Kay, you muted yourself somehow, so I'll try to carry on. So it was a whole list of items. There she is.
Oh my God, I keep trying to unmute and it just doesn't make a sound and flips right back to mute. So.
Okay. Yeah, I was just getting ready to carry on with the whole list of stuff, but I didn't get very far, so go ahead.
Okay, so it was a whole list of stuff that belonged to the victim's nephew. And I guess someone let him into the apartment, and is this I'm sorry, I think I'm confusing this. Rhonda, is this are you familiar? Is this the second time his girlfriend's let someone in, or? No,
Um,
okay.
yeah, no, it's no, there was just one entry as far as I recall.
Oh, it says that the detective said she had been investigating the Thompson slaying when she found these items, but according to investigators' notes, Thompson's body hadn't been found yet.
Yeah,
Oop-
it was a lie.
Oops.
Yeah.
And so then Macy proceeds to try to seat, he really wants to make sure that everyone who's on the jury is capable of giving a death giving a death penalty verdict. So he goes through all of the, I think, 45 people to start, and has to call more people in. Um,
Yeah.
thought I thought that was interesting. But he felt like he ended up with a jury that was gonna, carry out his kind of justice. Um,
Well, and I believe, I don't know if I remuted or not. I might have mute. Oh, nope, I thought I was muted in OBS. Okay. I believe that they actually, if I'm remembering my cases correctly with this, th- I think this is the one where they said that, where when they were questioning the jury, the voir dire, um, it basically something like, can you carry, if will your conscience allow you to carry out the death penalty, or, to
mm,
sentence it to the death penalty? And if not, I think that they were asking, you know, though they were kind of weeding out those people who had an aversion to, giving a death sentence. I believe that's
right.
this case.
Yeah, it definitely was. And they ended up with a jury that, said they had no problem doing that.
Yeah,
And
Um, you know,
that's the same way it was in Scott Peterson's. That's why his sentence got overturned because of they had a death qualified jury, but that was in California, not Oklahoma. So
yeah. And so also what happened is the judge wouldn't give um, the public defender a budget, an investigative budget, um, saying that they didn't, they denied them funds. And the Oklahoman, here's always the newspaper coming in with a timely editorial that struck a nerve with Daniel too. Um, the Oklahomans supported the decision in an editorial, saying that because against Thompson was so heinous, public opinion did not support providing Johnson with even adequate funds for his defense.
and
The
that's
newspaper
not
called the
okay.
ruling reasonable and logical.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, that was just, yeah, that's a huge slap in the face, too.
I mean, the
Yeah,
fact that they couldn't hire their own experts or anything like that to refute anything,
right.
No,
is shocking. I mean, I think that's one of the big problems with the American justice system as well, is the fact that the defence side doesn't get or doesn't have as much access to money and experts and things like that as what the prosecution does. So how can anybody have a fair trial in that sense? You know what I mean? It's no a fair trial because they're no able to have the same sort of budget, and I think that's something that needs to be looked into. On that side is the same as the prosecutor immunity.
Yes,
it really should change. Yeah, it really should. The prosecution shouldn't have all the resources. It should be even,
right. I agree.
for sure.
Well, and that is, that's the paper just basically chopping away at an indigent person's um, constitutional rights to a fair trial. And I understand that the Oklahoman is, yes, exactly, T1. There needs to be a level playing field. Absolutely. And I think that since the Constitution, provides innocent till proven guilty, I think that there should be more leniency or more, um, oh my goodness, excuse me, more gratitude or something to to the defense. They're the ones that are having to, you know, prove their innocence regardless of what the Constitution says nowadays.
Yep.
Oh,
Sorry.
so many things need to change.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at different senators that are dipping, taking a chance and making a stand about wrongful conviction. And I think Nosy just posted an article today about a wrongful conviction bill that made it through the House, I think, regarding compensation. So there's just so much work to be done.
What state is that, or is that federal? That the wrongful conviction bill?
No, I think it's federal, but I thought something in the article I didn't understand, and I was trying to read it real fast before I came in here to get ready, but it said something about the governor vetoing it, so that made it seem like it was a state thing.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know. I think it's in Jinx's Discord.
Oh, I missed it. I'll have to check it out.
Um, let's see where we are in the story. Okay, so we're going to trial. We have a jury seated, and in his opening statements, Macy described Malcolm Rent as a killer who raped Irma Alma Johnson and then neatly remade her bed after he watched her die. Macy had to say this because the stains Joyce Gilchrist identified as semen and matched to Johnson's blood type were found on the sheets and pillowcase of a made bed. So Macy pretty much just let his assistant DA Barry Albert handle the trial, and Bob Ravitch represented Malcolm. Let's see, during the testimony of the medical examiner, Albert drops the photograph. So they had some photographs that the judge said couldn't be shown to the jury. So the assistant DA drops him on the floor right in front of the jury so they see him. And Malcolm's attorney is pissed and he's kicking the photos out of the way, and in the book it says they almost got into a fight over that deal.
Because that's just that's just mental. The fact that they done that. I mean, because if you remember in Stephen's trial, Jerry Butin asked if he could drop the key on the carpet. And they were basically up in an uproar. No, 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 no. If we're going to do an experiment, then it needs to be done under certain conditions. And that's exactly what kind of happened here. They said no, that the 40s weren't coming in, so it was just a wee oopsie daisy, oh, sorry. But the jury seen it, you know what I mean? So, whether it was an accident or no, the jury seen it. So that's going to enter into their mindset on how he's guilty and that as well.
That's right. That is exactly right. Macy used of course, he used the statement that Malcolm made, I didn't come, as an outright admission that he raped her. And, they put Joyce Gilchrist on the stand, and she stated that his clothing, fibers, hair, and body fluids were all consistent with samples found in the bed and on the body of the victim. She stopped short of saying that the similarities positively linked Johnson to the crime. She testified that the hair and fiber evidence found at the crime scene was microscopically consistent with samples taken from the defendant and his clothing. Let's see. She did not perform any other tests to narrow down the source of the semen found at the crime scene at the time. DNA was not available at the time, but electrophoresis was, and that identifies certain enzymes and proteins in the blood, but she could have performed that. And then she gets into her hair, her hair testimony here. She testified blue-tipped negroid hairs found on the bed that matched hair taken from Johnson's arm. I mean, let's see. Man, she just, she's artful for sure. During closing arguments, Rent's attorney attacked her testimony. He stated that the blue tint Gilchrist saw in the hair evidence was in fact the blue lens of a comparison microscope. Ravitz argued that it was crazy to believe that Johnson would rape the victim on the bed, leave hair and semen stains on the pillowcase and sheets, and then neatly remake the bed. Macy defended Gilchrist by saying that Ravitz had to attack her because she was my whole case.
That's the same as I think I'm muted.
Man,
that's
it takes a lot out of you to read all this dirty antics. And
I mean, it's the fact. I mean, they say that 1 in 6 blacks has a blood type B, and 80% secretors.
Mm-hmm.
And the victim had a type O blood. So Gilchrist did not perform any tests to further narrow down the source of the semen found at the crime scene. Because I think because she had it in her head, because Bob Macy said it was this Malcolm when it could very well have been his brother.
Right.
They weren't interested in looking anywhere else. Bob Macy says it's him, then it's him.
I remember when I was reading that the first time, I thought, wow, that's like some Thomas Fassbender shit right there. It has to be her because, that's the same as, because that's my case. Yeah. It's the same as Fassbender telling Sherry Culhane, put her in his trailer or the garage or whatever the words were. And that's what I thought about when I read this part.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
I mean, it's just all, do this, check, do that, check, do this, check. Okay.
That's right.
Get a jury that will convict. He says to the jury, there's only one way you can stop that kind of fear, and that's to march up to that jury room and convict this man. He's guilty. There's no doubt. There's only one verdict. Guilty of murder in the first degree. By his closing argument, several jurors were crying, and so was Macy. Please. God.
And apparently he did that quite a lot, the whole crying thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. During the penalty phase, talks about oh, that's so depressing to go through this. I can't. We picked a really uplifting book, didn't we?
I know.
But I mean, Daniel's reading it as well, you know, so it's good to get his thoughts on it. So, I mean, I just thought it was good that Rivets, when Gilchrist was on the stand in the cross examination, he got Gilchrist to actually admit that while she worked on some 80 cases involving hair analysis, that was her first case to testify against fibers. I mean, how could they have her as an expert, as a fiber expert, when she knew nothing about it?
Yeah, and
well, I guess she was an expert from then on, huh?
Yep. Well, because
Must have been.
they knew right then that they could get her to say whatever they needed her to say in court. This something that struck me during the penalty phase. Oklahoma prosecutors are allowed to present unadjudicated acts, which are accusations of crimes that have yet to be proven in court. They are actually able to use those to show that the defendant is a continuing threat to society. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the laws in most, courts or counties or states or whatever, but it just seems like there's a lot of laws and things like that in Oklahoma written to protect the state's um version of a tale. It seems like. So, yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, following Daniel's case and a lot of other cases, it definitely is like watching people jump through hoops.
Hmm.
It's all a game. I mean, the district attorney cooks up some fiction that fits his lack of evidence, or whatever is the most damning thing he can think of with the evidence he has, and spins a tale. And it's just I don't know how those people do that. How are you one of those people?
And there's so many of them. It just seems like there's so many of them.
I mean, are those people that are just raised in like a law and order home, and they've had the shit scared out of them with the news of, I don't know, it's just,
I don't know.
I don't know, it's a different kind of person that
A whole different
is drawn
mentality,
to
right?
that kind of work.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there would still have been a lot of racial tension and everything like that back then as well. And to me, Bob Macy sounds like he would have been one racist bastard, to be honest.
Right.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, Malcolm gets arrested. They want to hang this rape and murder on him. Macy gets involved and sees that he just only did 4 years for some heinous crimes in Illinois, and decided to come bring his show to Oklahoma. I mean, yeah, he took care of that black guy.
Yes, he did.
He definitely did. It's just whatever. I mean, it's hard to defend Malcolm, except in the sense that everyone deserves a fair trial. You should only be convicted of what you're doing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
There's plenty of stuff to convict him for.
I mean, the fact that in his closing argument and all, I mean, Bob Macy, in his closing argument, he was so sure of himself that he turns around and he says, I've been in law enforcement long enough to know the difference between a bad case and a good case. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, really? You've done all the tests and everything like that, and this is the best one you've ever seen? Come on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
prosecutorial misconduct in some states, to have a prosecutor vouch for the evidence. It's the jury's job to decide whether the evidence is credible. Not, he's not supposed to be telling them this is great. This is the best I've seen. That's wrong.
Right.
Aye.
Yeah.
But Macy says, I'm fighting for freedom right now. I'm fighting for Ura Thompson, discomfort in this city and this county, not to have to live like that, not to have to fear him anymore. You know, he probably wasn't the only one out there doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and I mean, to me, for what I read and things like that, it was more his brother, because two witnesses said that it looked like his brother rather than it looked like him.
Right. But they were never allowed to even discuss that.
No, which is wrong. They should check every avenue, go doing everything there. I mean, like they didn't do with Brendan. You know what I mean? They didn't go to the people who knew him for him and things like that. I don't even think if they checked on alibis and things like that with Malcolm.
I
Well,
don't think they checked anything that would have been exculpatory. It's
No.
crazy.
well, they don't.
I mean,
They didn't because Bob Macy had already determined and made it public that he was going to make sure this guy was convicted. And
yeah, and he was. It didn't take him long either, did it?
no,
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 3 hours or something like that, wasn't it?
3.5 hours, and I bet he was shocked when two of the jurors voted against death.
oh yeah,
They
you
just
got
couldn't,
Yeah, I mean, he knew how to play. He knew how to play the jury, and everything like that. I mean, the way he says, people have got the right to live without having the kind of fear, and there's only one way you can stop that kind of fear, and that is to march up to the jury room and convict this man, because he is guilty. There is no doubt. There is only one verdict: guilty of murder in the first degree.
Yeah.
And some of the jury members and that were greeting, you know. So I mean, it's like, how are you supposed to take that? You know, I'm telling you the truth now. You listen to me, and because of the reputation that Bob Macy had in that county and everything like that, a lot of people probably did just take him on his word. So if he says he's guilty, then he's guilty.
right.
Yeah, those two jurors, they wanted to be guaranteed that they wanted to not put him to death, but they also wanted a guarantee that he wouldn't be paroled anytime soon, which, according to state law at the time, the judge could give no such guarantees. So they changed their votes to a death sentence. And
Yeah, but I mean,
Disgusting.
even the jury coming back in an hour and a half. You know, I mean, that's what it took them, was an hour and a half
Right.
to go through the evidence, to look at statements, to read their notes and everything like that. There's no way that they done that properly. There's no way that they took everything into account. They took his word for it and his word only to be able to come back in an hour and a half.
Yeah,
in my opinion. So
agreed.
Yeah. I mean, and then the Oklahoman editorial fashion, they they said this is one of those cases where capital punishment seems almost too kind. So
They're egregious.
they're so in bed with
Oh yeah,
the DA's office and Oklahoma City Police Department. I mean, they have their people who give them stories, and they write what they get, and they know what they need to write to keep the deal, I guess. I don't know.
yeah.
They can't all be that ignorant, truly.
Immoral, unethical.
Well, immoral, but, they can't be dumb to not be able to. I don't understand. You can't be an investigative reporter and not know how to investigate something. So,
Right.
who knows? Some people would say maybe that's why they work in Oklahoma.
Oh,
So,
yeah. That's sad.
there is that. But Malcolm said at his sentencing, I feel as though I've been railroaded, that it was racially motivated, and that the sentence given to me was injustice. And then he has a second trial for attempted rape, armed robbery, burglary, illegal weapons possessions. And that was a miss. The first, they seated jury, and the jury sees him in handcuffs, so there's a mistrial. And then they seat a new jury, and after hearing 2 days of testimony and deliberating for 37 minutes, 37 minutes for all those charges, they gave him two 75-year sentences.
Yeah.
He was alleged to have followed other victims home and forced his way inside while they're opening their doors. This doesn't seem to have happened at the Thompson crime scene, though. So they start finding out, that I don't know how much they just pinned on him to clear off the books, but, things weren't really matching up if you just like the Holtzclaw case, here, let's just throw all these charges and stuff together, cases together, and let's tell the people that they all have the same whatever. Let's just say they all have the same MO and the same verbiage.
When the MO's the same and the verbiage is the same. Till we've watched some of these.
Rocky thinks that Eric Gardner looks like Janie Liggins or any of the other people.
Yeah.
They all look the same. They all look alike,
Yep.
They were all saying the same things.
Yep, exactly. Like robots.
Yeah. During the appeals process, Bob Ravitz hired an expert witness who said that Gilchrist had testified beyond the bounds of accepted science when she matched an arm hair to the defendant. Ravitz was unable to get an evidentiary hearing based on his expert's findings, though. That's not shocking either.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma, you can have secret hearings and not get an evidentiary hearing.
And you cannot search for alternative suspects, i.e. Gore suspects. Or Denny suspects. And that doesn't count as ineffective assistance of counsel or violation of a constitutional right in Oklahoma.
Right.
So yeah.
And then in October of '87, the Supreme Court denied one of Johnson's appeals, However, Justices Marshall and Brennan, in their dissenting opinion, argued that Johnson should have been allowed an independent police scientist to examine hair, blood, and semen evidence against him. The justices said that because the court did not appoint a scientist for Johnson, he was prevented from raising doubts about the state's evidence and possibly finding that the evidence was in fact exculpatory. At the time, Marshall and Brennan were dissenting on every death penalty case. They believed that capital punishment was unconstitutional. So then his appeals are exhausted and he's given an execution date. And I mean, like all these other things, he has his last meal, which is 3 fried chicken thighs, a dozen shrimp, tater tots with ketchup, 2 slices of pecan pie, strawberry ice cream, honey and biscuits, and a soda. The Supreme Court rejected the last minute appeals, and he walked into the death chamber, said, "I'm innocent. I got peace in my heart and I'm ready to go home." And the chaplain noted that he's the only person to walk into the death chamber that didn't confess to his crimes before he was executed. He said, "I'm going to heaven on a midnight train." And then asked God to bless his family who sat watching in the witness chamber. And then they gave him the drugs. So when the Gilcrease scandal broke, Bob and other members of the defense bar thought of Malcolm Rent Johnson immediately. You're thinking about knowing he had already been executed and that he might have been, as they say, factually innocent of those crimes for which he was executed. He would still be serving 2 75-year sentences, but he would be alive.
Right. I just found that case really sad, the Malcolm Rent Johnson case very sad. I'm sorry, carry on.
So I guess I was confused about, with all of his appeals exhausted, how do we get to the point? It's just because of the Gilcrease thing that they re-examined his case. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, David Prater is assistant DA by this time. And so they ask for the files, and they're told that the files are missing.
Yeah.
They get an email telling him about the missing evidence and saying that something needs to be done. Defense attorney Doug Parr was representing the Johnson family in a possible civil rights suit, requesting the serology evidence. So he ends up going down to the evidence room and finding the evidence exactly where it's supposed to be after he's told that it doesn't exist.
Right, that is lost.
He says, "I don't even think that they even got up and went and looked for it." And I guess they wouldn't think someone would just march down there and try to find it themselves, but
yeah, that's what I thought. She was late. Joyce Gilchrist was just thinking, well, they all trust me. They trust everything I say. They believe everything I say. So I'm just going to tell them it's lost, and nobody's going to go back and check on me. And didn't quite turn out that way. So
no, Prater sent Wes Lane, who took took Gilchrist's place, a memo. No, Wes Lane took. Oh my God, whose place did Wes Lane take? I'm so confused right now.
He sent Wes Lane the memo.
Oh wait, was Prater? Oh my God.
Wes
Prater is
Lane
the
was
DA.
Macy. Wes Lane was the DA after Bob Macy.
And then Prater was under him. So at the time, David Prater sent, Prater's an assistant. He sends his DA, Wes Lane, a memo stating that the Johnson evidence had to be sent out for DNA testing. Here's a name we recognize again. Assistant DA Richard Winery
Yes.
tried to keep the evidence from being re-examined. Here's why.
Exactly.
There should never be an opportunity for anyone to deny testing for anything or any reason at the tester's own expense. I'm sorry, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially if a DA is asking for it to be tested.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Winery ended up getting disbarred. He's the guy that got disbarred for hiding exculpatory evidence when he worked in Arizona, and then that same thing caught up with him, and he lost his job in Oklahoma because of the Arizona thing as well.
I read that case a couple of weeks ago, actually. The Wintry case.
Oh, did you?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, he was pretty much a dick.
Well,
Sorry.
he's back in Oklahoma being a dick now, so.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's see.
All the dicks moved to Oklahoma.
Laura is it Skeely? Retested the evidence in the slides and says that there was no spermatosa present there at all. Even though sperm can last for decades.
Yeah.
On something. It said it contained Johnson's blood type and secrete acelic. Conclusions were supported by 3 other police chemists, Kyla Marsh, Elaine Taylor, and Melissa Keith. They had all microscopically examined the smear slides prepared by Gilchrist and concluded that while there was sperm present on the slides taken from the vaginal smears, there was no sperm present. But that was one of the things that he got fucking convicted on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and the response to that, I think there was a really outlandish response to that. When they were looking into Gilchrist about the sperm on the bedspread and pillowcase.
Yeah, at Johnson's trial, Gilchrist had testified that those 6 samples taken from the victim's bed showed semen consistent with Malcolm Rent Johnson's blood type. She also testified that the vaginal swab slide had contained sperm, but not enough to test. Gilchrist got it entirely wrong. She didn't see sperm where sperm was present, yet she testified to sperm being present and matching the defendant's blood. So the fact that she could even get up and get away with that is beyond me.
Well,
but then if they weren't allowed to hire, if the defence wasn't allowed to hire witnesses to test the same samples, then how could they refute it?
Right. And who was going to challenge her? I mean, the defense didn't have the money to hire, their expert witnesses or their expert scientists. So really, there was no one to challenge them, and they know that. They know that the defense doesn't have the funds to challenge, something so outlandish and outrageous. So they know they can get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Well, and the fact that Macy has to try to make things fit his version of the evidence, by saying that he neatly made the bed because he needed to, you know, he said it because he thought he had to explain why Gilchrist had found semen on the sheets and pillowcase. In fact, there was no semen on the bedclothes. So he had added that extra little detail. And you see that in Kim and Rocky's reports all the time. These extra little details that are like over explaining.
yes.
It's like, why did you even do that? Kim Davis makes a police report saying that someone asked her if she wanted to come to the second searching of Holtzclaw's car. And she said no, she didn't want to. Is that something you write down in a police report?
No. And those are, just from what little bit I've tried to learn about, trying to, you know, um, oh gosh, trying to detect whether somebody is being truthful or not. That's one of the things is when they're adding information that is unnecessary to the story, giving too much detail. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. When they're trying to
Right.
give so much detail, the more they do that, the more what they're saying begins to sound untrue.
Yeah, you definitely need to look at that part of the story and figure out what's messed up right there because it's a dead giveaway.
That's what Kathleen said about Ryan, I believe it was, his detailed explanation about the broken light and the insurance and all that. She said the same thing.
Oh yeah, that was definitely out. That guy.
Yeah.
That's in
That
Dream
was so
Killer, right?
so clear. Ryan
Ryan
Hilligus.
Ferguson, yeah. Oh, Ryan Hilligus.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought she was talking about Ferguson at first too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't going to talk very much. I need to stick to that. I'm sorry.
No, that's
So
fine.
let's see. So Shile, the OCPD crime lab analyst, in her memo, she recommended that a complete review of the physical evidence in the Johnson case be performed by a trained, experienced, proficient forensic scientist prior to any DNA testing. She quit the Oklahoma Crime Lab 3 days after she sent that memo.
See, that's why would she do that? Why would she write a memo like that and then leave? Did she know that she would have
was of that. She probably knew a lot.
Uh-oh. You're muted again,
I'm
Kay.
sure. God damn it.
Well, you're not muted. Sorry.
Oh, thanks a lot.
No,
You
she
got
just
me
no.
a
You did cut out. You did cut out.
Oh, don't make me laugh. Oh,
I'm sitting a foot away from my
oh,
computer.
sorry.
If I'm muted.
I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Well, at least that's all I said.
That's all we heard you say, because for whatever reason, we couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh my
Oh,
god. Let's see.
anyway.
Speaking for the DA's office, our friend Richard Winery said, the evidence against Malcolm Rent Johnson is absolutely, uncontestably overwhelming. He done it. Done it. Done it.
They're so professional in their language. In their language.
No
Done
kidding.
it, done it, done it.
Yeah, Malcolm's attorney offered to pay for the tests himself, but the feds seized all the evidence in the Johnson case as part of their grand jury investigation. The feds have no interest at all in determining whether or not Johnson was guilty or innocent. They're ostensibly conducting a criminal investigation into Gilchrist, and they're only interested in whether or not she may have lied or committed some criminal act in her involvement in the investigation. Yeah, man. I mean, he wasn't a good guy. But gosh dang, it really just exposes all the dirty deeds that these people do with immunity. So that has to change.
It's just very, it is depressing. It is a very depressing story. It's upsetting. And I know when the first couple of times I read it, I had tears in my eyes because I was so angry that they were so fine to just, you know, execute this man. And because why? Because Bob Macy, he was pissed off that, this lowlife parolee moved in from another state, moved into his state, and, you know, now he's done this crime, and by damn, I'm going to make sure he dies for it. And, I mean, it was just really upsetting to me that they were so okay with executing a man that was innocent of those particular charges, or very likely innocent, I should say. Um,
But they're willing to do it to other, people that don't have the history that Malcolm Brent Johnson had. So,
True.
it's no matter who they do it to, it's wrong and it needs to
Yeah,
be exposed.
yeah. And, we're talking about, we talk about Daniel's case and, Julius Jones's case and Rodney Reed's case. I think Rodney Reed's is his in Texas. I can't remember. But,
Yeah.
these different cases of wrongful convictions, Stephen and Brendan, of course. And but just like we have to go back to the 85 case and Stephen's case for his case right now, we have to go into the 85 case to, to really see where it really started. Same thing. Everything that's going on in Oklahoma City right now, we have to go back to what we're reading about now because it absolutely is a mentality that started at the very earliest or the least started with Bob Macy and Joyce Gilchrist and their little happy teams of executioners. Um, because it really does go back. There's something that happened way a long time ago that you know either got perpetuated throughout the years or picked up steam again throughout the year or something. But when we're able to read in this book from what was it 2000 or 2001, um, and read names that we know now, like we read of uh, David Prater and Elaine Taylor and Brian Boschel, Bill Cook. These names are names that we know, through our research for Daniel's case, that we're reading that had some involvement in cases way, way, way back in, the 80s with Bob Macy and Joyce Gilchrist. So, it's like I said, it's like going back to the 85 case and Stevens case. We have to look at these names and go back and look at some of those same names, back in the 80s. So,
Aye, I mean that brings me back to the point though. It's the how can I put it? The the education of officers and law enforcement and things like that needs to change as well. They need to be gone every year or so and re-educate themselves and everything like that, because you've got the ones who have been trained by Bob Macy, who have learned his bad habits. No, don't do it this way. Do it that way. If you do it that way, then you'll get a better conviction and things like that. And then they ones are then training the newcomers,
Yes.
the rookies and everything, which are teaching them the exact same way that they got taught because they don't know any different,
Right. Yeah.
you know. And
Just
it's
like a
that
parenting cycle.
exactly. So it needs to be deep. It needs to the education and everything needs to be deep rooted and go for the rookies to the sheriffs to whoever, because and a lot more youngins need to come forward as well, because I think as a lot of the older generation, like Bob Macy and Gilchrist and Taylor and things like that, they've got a certain mentality, and some of it is still in the racial divide,
Yeah.
which is wrong.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It is morally wrong. Even if we look past every other wrong that it is, it's morally wrong, and it's disturbing that the morals could be ignored so easily. I did want to read. I do want to read a couple of paragraphs, really short. And Kay, if you were planning to do this, I apologize, but
No,
uh,
I'm done.
okay, in the book it says the entire case against Malcolm Rent Johnson consisted of items found in his house, the blood type evidence, the hairs, and his statement to Bill Cook. Without Gilchrist's testimony, it would have been difficult to convict Johnson. And then here's what I find interesting. Even David Prater, I just think that's the way that, just because we know of how David Prater is today. So when I read the word even David Prater, even David Prater, who's a criminal himself, that's how I read that. Even David Prater admits that the Malcolm Rent Johnson case is the one case out of the ones who have been executed that is questionable. And I just, God, every time I read that, my blood I just got chills again because it's just horrible.
He
Uh,
only says it because he has to say it. So
yeah, yeah,
just because of the Gilcrease stain.
yeah, has to, and that's Prater. That's the Prater that we know, the slimy one that's willing to, do whatever lie he has to lie, or story he has to, tell to make himself look good. But yeah, you're probably absolutely right, Kay. It's probably just a matter of not how he really feels, but what
Yeah.
makes him look compassionate and decent and moral. You're right.
Well, she did all that wrongdoing, he
Right.
would never do anything like that.
Yeah. Um, Nearing the end of that chapter, it says, in the end, Johnson was not given the due process that even a scumbag like him deserves. This is Mark Fuhrman speaking. The first thing that should have happened was a complete investigation and a prosecution that accounted for and explained all the evidence. Once the detectives had their confession and Gilchrist's bodily fluid evidence, the investigation basically ended. And that for Bob Macy, the standard seemed to be whether or not he could get a conviction and a death sentence. And using that standard and no others, the Johnson case was a success for them. And then Mark Fuhrman says at the end, um, I don't know whether Johnson was guilty or innocent, and neither did Bob Macy, Joyce Gilchrist, or anyone else on the prosecution team. That's the problem. The fact that all the evidence went missing and then miraculously reappeared only shows that not even the prosecutors are entirely sure that Johnson was the killer. Um, that's just
It's just like wow,
it's
wow.
just shocking, and and that hasn't ended. That's just, and T1 had said earlier in the chat, prosecutorial misconduct, and it's worse now not just because we're researchers and we find more cases. We're at a point now in this society, we're not really having to search for that information anymore. It's become so much more prevalent that it comes to us now. And and it's because of that, that immunity, that has existed for all these years, and all these prosecutors, all these Bob Macy's that have gotten away with their horrific lies, and injustices, that we have the problem that we do now, that is even more significant. And yeah, I mean, it's just very, very disturbing. So, we just have to keep doing what we're doing and fighting for the wrongfully convicted, those who are innocent. That's what our jobs are. So that's how I feel anyway.
Do it.
All right. Are there
I'm ready to go listen to the podcast.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So quick thing, evidently I just found this on just as we were getting ready to go live. Brian Bates has now published, I believe, his episode 25, I think. The
24.
24, Shardarian Hill accusation on his website, holtzclawtrial.com. So yes, I agree. Now that I know that's up, I'm going to go see if my stomach and my headache can handle listening to that nasty lie. Um, and then one last announcement. Tomorrow night, directly following Brendan Talks, I'm going to stream the Michelle Malkin interview with Greg and um, Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory, in um, Daniel's Truth. So if you'd like to, I don't know what time Linda's show ends, what time Brendan Talks ends. They usually are about a half hour long, and I think they start at 4 or 5 o'clock Central. I'll find the time and post it. But if you'd like to hear, or come and watch that interview with us in Discord, we'd love to have you. And we can, depending if whoever's there, if you want to ask a question while we're watching and something strikes you and you want to ask a question, we can pause it and take questions and stuff like that during the show, during the stream as well. So um, thank you to everybody in chat. Shaz, T1, Catnip, thank you for the links. And everybody else that was here, Dark Side. And um, I think that was about the extent of our audience
Well,
tonight, and that's
Sylvia
fine.
joined us. My wee
Who,
sister Sylvia joined us as well.
who did?
Sylvia, my wee sister.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, welcome, Sylvia. I'm glad that you were here tonight. We're really excited to have new people in these cases, so welcome. And so if that's it, and nobody else has any questions or comments, we're going to go ahead and end the show, and we will be back next Thursday night with chapter 4, and we will see everybody we'll see everybody tomorrow night, hopefully in Discord for the streaming. So till then, we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.